Amber Heard, I'm not a victim. A number of you have come across this in watching the coverage of the trial between Depp and Heard. Some of you have asked me about it, wanting to solicit my view as to what's actually going on. This is where Depp's lawyer, Camille Vasquez, is cross-examining Amber Heard. What I'm going to do is play you the section of footage first, so you can watch it, form your own views about what you think is going on, and then I'll provide you with a breakdown so you understand precisely why Amber Heard behaves as she does and why she states very firmly, I have never wanted to be seen as a victim. First, the footage.
And that's because you did want something, didn't you?
I didn't want anything and I didn't get anything.
You wanted Mr. Depp's money.
Didn't get it, wasn't interested in it. I loved Johnny, that's why I was with him.
You wanted praise for donating the money, right?
That's incorrect.
You wanted good press.
In general, one does want good press, yes.
You wanted to seem altruistic publicly.
Wasn't my interest. My interest is in my name and clearing my name, and at the time I was being called a liar and my motives were being questioned. I did see it as important to clear that up. I wanted to make a statement to make sure that there was not any doubt that I couldn't be labeled these things just because Johnny was a bigger star and had more publicity reach.
You wanted to remind everyone of your claims of domestic violence against Mr. Depp, right?
No, I wanted to move on with my life.
You wanted to make those claims seem believable.
They are believable. They were
You wanted
believable.
them to be seen, as a noble victim of domestic violence,
I
didn't
have
you?
never wanted to be seen as a victim. Nor have I ever called myself one.
Well, you've seen the footage taken from court. What we witness is something of a back and forth, with Camille Vasquez volleying pelters towards Amber Heard, trying to suggest that essentially Amber Heard's motivation was to engender sympathy and positive support as being on the receiving end of domestic violence, and that she was seeking money from Johnny Depp. Heard actually does reasonably well in fielding these questions. She looks to Vasquez to receive them and then volleys her answer off towards the jury, utilising the way that undoubtedly her own lawyers have trained her to give evidence. She dispatches her answers to the jury, and back and forth they go. She's not giving any ground, asserting a contrary position to that of what Vasquez is suggesting. Each question is challenge fuel. When there is an interaction between a narcissist and somebody else, there are only ever three interactions. We are either provided with pure fuel, be it positive or negative, challenge fuel, where we get fuel but there's a challenge associated with it, or we are wounded. If you'd like to understand more about those distinctions, I'd encourage you to go to the Knowledge Vault and obtain this very important information, the three interactions with the narcissist. It'll help you understand so much more about your own involvement with narcissists and those that you see in day-to-day life. Accordingly, every time a question is posed towards Amber Heard, suggesting that she's got an ulterior motive, for instance, that she was in for the money, this is challenge fuel. Heard's narcissism keeps a lid on her fury. She curtly and succinctly responds by saying, wasn't interested in it, never got it, was in love with Johnny, that's why I was with him. This is what her narcissism is telling her to essentially say, based upon what she believes. She believes that she did love him. She believes that she's capable of emotional empathy. She doesn't realise, because her narcissism doesn't let her know this, that she is incapable of emotional empathy and she's not capable of love. The questioning moves on with the suggestion from Camille Vasquez of, you wanted to be seen as a noble victim of domestic violence. Again, this is challenge fuel. She's giving fuel because she's interacting with her, the words that she's using, her facial expression, her body language, the tone that's being utilised provides fuel It's of a negative nature because it's critical, but it's also challenge fuel because she's being suggested that she's doing something wrong. Heard's response to this question is, I have never wanted to be seen as a victim, nor have I ever called myself one. First of all, note that when she answers the question, she actually gives the answer not to the jury, but to Vasquez. This is because her narcissism sees this as a particularly strong threat to control by virtue of the challenge fuel, meaning that rather than just calmly bat it off towards the answer off towards the jury, it's almost taken personally. Her narcissism says, whoa, hang on a second, what's this fucker saying? And rather than her calmly and deliberately turn and give the answer to the jury, she gives her answer this time to Vasquez. Vasquez undoubtedly will have noticed this shift, won't know precisely why it's occurred, but ought to recognise as a litigator that she's got under the skin to some extent of this particular witness. When Heard responds, you can see a hardening of her face. Her voice is firm, and there is an unwavering gaze. What's happening here? This is the manifestation of cold fury. Her narcissism doesn't allow heated fury to come forth. So it isn't that she vaults from the stand, does a quick sprint, being fast over the first 5 yards towards Vasquez, grabs her by the hair, smacks her face into the lectern, and then the two of them roll around in the dust on the courtroom floor, having a bitch fight. That would be the direct assertion of control, but the narcissism doesn't opt for that because it has to maintain facade. The facade lights flashing, reminding the narcissism that it can't allow her to directly assert control through heated fury. She can't turn round and insult her. Again, the facade won't allow that to happen. So instead, it opts for cold fury, meaning that although the answer isn't given to the jury, and it's given to her, she maintains her composure, but one can see the hardening of the face, the firm voice, the unwavering gaze. This is the manifestation of cold fury. Her narcissism has allowed this to come to the fore to compel her to respond in this way to nullify the threat to control posed by Vasquez's question. Now, having explained to you precisely what's going on, we can get further under the bonnet in relation to this. Why does she reject a victim status in this exchange when her evidence generally demonstrates that she is a victim, or at least she's trying to portray herself as a victim of domestic violence perpetrated by Johnny Depp? Furthermore, surely, as a narcissist, she has a rampant victim mentality, and why is her narcissism not letting that shine through? The answer to this is that when she chooses to portray herself as a victim, everything's all right. If she wants to say that she's the one that was shouted at, beaten up, had her hair pulled, the one who had her head, that she was knocked to the ground, so you can see how dirty the floor was. If she chooses to be the victim, that's permissible, because it's her choice, which means she remains in control, and there's no threat to control. She, of course, does have a default setting of victimhood as a mid-range narcissist. They are the worst in terms of having that victim mentality out of all of the schools. Accordingly, that victim mentality drove her to give the evidence that she did, accusing Depp of being a perpetrator of domestic violence, and caused her in those circumstances to indeed portray herself as a victim. However, when it's suggested by Camille Vasquez that she wants to portray herself as a victim, essentially, this is suggesting that she's engaging in a pity play. It's suggesting that she's weak. It's suggesting that she's manipulative. And of course, all of that amounts to a challenge, and thus is a threat to control, and her narcissism must reject it. Therefore, we see the steely response, the cold fury ignites, causing her to respond as she did. Now, of course, the astute amongst you will realise, well, hang on a moment. You've been portraying yourself as a victim of domestic violence all through this trial. Your evidence says as such, and now you're saying you're not a victim, and that you haven't portrayed yourself as one. That's rather at odds. It is, and it's inconsistent with the general victim approach that she's demonstrated. What this shows us are two further things of the narcissistic dynamic: compartmentalization and collateral consequences. Compartmentalization, whereby, when it suits her to play the victim, it's allowed. When somebody else suggests that she's the victim, it's not allowed. And her narcissism sees no problem with adopting those stances because of the compartmentalization. The narcissism isn't interested in the consistency of what she says, it's interested in the consistency of the prime aims, namely asserting control and nullifying those threats to control, drawing fuel, drawing character traits and residual benefits. And that's why the narcissist will face both ways at once, will twist inside out, upside down and back to front, and doesn't see any problem with that, because the narcissism doesn't allow them to see it. You, if you've been a victim of a narcissist, will have seen these contradictions, the contrarian behaviour, the inconsistencies, the volte-faces, the 180-degree turns. You may well have pointed them out to the narcissist and had them rejected. That's simply because the narcissist, where unaware, doesn't see it, and therefore rejects it. With regard to collateral consequences, because the narcissism is focused on maintaining this consistency of the assertion of control, it's not interested in what might come next. Accordingly, when it's necessary for her to play the victim, she will do so. And then when it's necessary for her to deny being the victim, she will do so. The narcissism isn't interested in the collateral consequence of one position contradicting the other and how that might make her look as a witness. Her narcissism isn't evolved enough to deal with that. Instead, all it's focused on is the assertion of control and drawing of fuel in the moment. This short exchange between the lawyer Camille Vasquez and Amber Heard allows you to understand more of the narcissistic dynamic in action, getting you under the bonnet, with the expertise provided by me, H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.
And that's because you did want something, didn't you?
I didn't want anything and I didn't get anything.
You wanted Mr. Depp's money.
Didn't get it, wasn't interested in it. I loved Johnny, that's why I was with him.
You wanted praise for donating the money, right?
That's incorrect.
You wanted good press.
In general, one does want good press, yes.
You wanted to seem altruistic publicly.
Wasn't my interest. My interest is in my name and clearing my name, and at the time I was being called a liar and my motives were being questioned. I did see it as important to clear that up. I wanted to make a statement to make sure that there was not any doubt that I couldn't be labeled these things just because Johnny was a bigger star and had more publicity reach.
You wanted to remind everyone of your claims of domestic violence against Mr. Depp, right?
No, I wanted to move on with my life.
You wanted to make those claims seem believable.
They are believable. They were
You wanted
believable.
them to be seen, you wanted to be seen, as a noble victim of domestic violence,
I
didn't
have
you?
never wanted to be seen as a victim. Nor have I ever called myself one.